Let's do this. All right.
Here, or I've got a breached birth over here, and I can't run to all of these things because I have to deal with you and your. For people, I just don't want to take the vaccine. If you don't want to take it, you don't want to take it. That's fine. But don't then, like, if you were that bad and you had all the balls or all the ovaries with women to say I'm good, be good when your O2 stat is less than 70 and you can't breathe.
Do you feel that way for all vaccines or specifically for COVID or just for all preventative care? So for example, right, preventative care is going and women go, yearly for their pap smear, but you know what? I missed a few and now guess what? Now I have cervical cancer. Should I no longer be able to be a candidate for treatment? Should I die now because I missed a few paps?
No, and here's the difference. Right, here's the difference. Okay, so we're looking at the preventative piece, but we're looking at the pandemic piece too. Right. Your ovaries are your ovaries, right? I can't mandate that people wear condoms or use contraceptives or whatever the case may be. You're still, if you engage in the risk, then okay, you got to accept real consequences, whether it be pregnancy, STD, whatever. The difference
so being change that with COVID, to HIV, AIDS, right? So if someone has HIV or AIDS, but we know that you could be prosecuted if you willingly or that you have it. We know that. But if unwillingly and you don't know that you have it, but you haven't took any preventative measures to take care of yourself, do you think that those people should not be treated?
No, you should still be treated because you don't know, right? That's just that's negligence.
But we all know that unsafe sex can cause you could end up with AIDS. There's no difference.
The difference with that and
COVID, if we're out here shooting up with needles and we could potentially kill other people, it's the same thing, right?
No, it's not the same thing. It's not, because those are all individualistic behaviors. You choose to have sex with with whoever, those are two individuals engaging. You choose not to be vaccinated and catch COVID, you are now harboring something that's going to impact everybody because you're breathing. You're not just not breathe.
But if you get, so say you're sick, right? And you get the vaccine, you're supposed to be protected if I choose not to.
No, I'm supposed to be protected from these symptoms. That doesn't mean that it can't mutate. That doesn't mean that I can't spread it to somebody else.
Correct.
That doesn't mean I can't spread it to
you can spread it, but what I'm saying, you should be protected so that if I'm an unvaccinated person, let's say everybody else on the panel got vaccinated and I choose not to, right? So at this point, for the sake of argument, now you guys have herd immunity. Everybody else is protected. I choose not to. You should be good. Right? Because you took the vaccine.
Because if I take that, it doesn't prevent me from transmitting the virus to somebody else.
So I think the thing is, and I hate to say it like this, and maybe, so I'm an infectious disease program manager. I'm over COVID, HIV, all this stuff. So I hear this conversation all the time. I think a couple of things that people don't understand is that this vaccine is not going to stop you from getting it. The purpose of the vaccine is to, if you should catch it, you are less likely to end up dead or in the hospital, right? We are now in a state where people who are vaccinated are absolutely coming down with COVID. The studies have showed, the statistics have showed, the data has supported that the people who are in the hospital, in the ICU, like the reports came out yesterday, there was one particular hospital, 100% of them were unvaccinated. We are now in a state where we're having all these mutations. We spoke about herd immunity. We're not going to get there, and now we're having people who are already vaccinated and who've had their first and their second and their third vaccine. We're to that point because not enough people got their vaccine. So now we're essentially having to start all over, and it's going to continue to happen. And those who are vaccinated are going to continue to get COVID because not enough people, when they were supposed to, got the vaccine. So because people took too long to get the vaccine, it allowed for all these different mutations to come. We're going to continue to have mutations because people don't want to mask up, people don't want to sit their asses down, and people don't want to get the vaccine. There's a lot of people saying, I'm going to do this research, I'm going to do this research. How much longer do you need to do this research? And I feel like a lot of people, this doctor, this, like, and one thing I'm also learning is that not everyone really knows how to identify actual scientific research. So a lot of times people, instead of actually getting the proper source information for themselves, they're listening to their homegirl. They're listening to this. They're looking at what Instagram is saying. So I think that is how we've gotten into this situation. I'm going to just kind of chill on this because I can go on a whole rant on this. But that is why we are in this situation that we are in. And when it comes to the hospital, I do. You made the choice to not go ahead and get yourself vaccinated. And the issue with the healthcare workers is that we are having to put off life-altering medical care because people who were unvaccinated chose not to get vaccinated, chose not to be preventative. When it comes to HIV, that is preventative. That is something that happens within your body. This is not something that is airborne. So that's the difference between HIV/AIDS and COVID. So it's not the same.
Can we also just go back to like everyone's playing around and bullshitting, quite frankly, with this vaccine? Like, oh, it's my rights, it's my rights. The government can very well say this has now reached the level, and it's actually surpassed the level of like Ebola, and enact public health laws and start to incarcerate and quarantine people against their will. Then what are people going to do? Complain, oh my God, they can't do this to us. You had an opportunity. You had every opportunity to do something. And instead it's, oh my God, it's going to cause infertility. You listen to like this bullshit, and I can't, like, it just pisses me off because it's bullshit. I don't want to do this. So when we get into a space where now everyone has to be quarantined federally and you can't do anything, who are you going to blame then? Whose fault is it going to be? That goes back to accountability.
And like, even for states like, New York, even though they're not saying that you're forced, but you're forced, right? You can't work, you can't eat, you can't attend shows, you can't walk down the street, you can't do anything, but you're not. I mean, so that's ultimately forcing somebody to get vaccinated, right? Like, that's why I'm vaccinated. That's why I have all the, vaccines, boosters, and everything else, because I like to attend concerts. Like, I personally, without you forcing me to do that, like, I'm going to go to a brunch, I'm going to go to a concert. That's why I'm vaccinated, because you forced me to do so, right?
So if it's
you can't live without it.
But if it's that, well, you can live. Concerts
in New York, in New York specifically, you have to stay in your apartment. You can't do anything else. You cannot live in the city of New York. Can't participate in anything.
But concerts are not something you have to do.
You can't eat. You cannot go into a restaurant.
You got Uber Eats.
It's a choice. So you have to stay home.
You can you listen. You made the choice to be unvaccinated.
In society without the vaccine.
So is that P? Is that a part of your point? And Sean, respond to this. If it's that, if I want to go to concerts in Burger King, if you really ain't standing on nothing, then why so many people just not getting this shit? Because it is a lot of that. I want to travel. I want to go to Burger King.
That's the only
and Poop, I know you like Burger King. I want to go to Burger King.
You know what?
And all this other shit.
Don't talk about your mom like that.
Well, to answer your original question, I think they deny healthcare for multiple reasons. And if you want to add COVID-19 to the list, I'm fine with that. They make the public health orders and public health rules for a reason. That's to protect not just someone's feelings or someone's religious beliefs or somebody's personal agenda. That's to protect the people. So I'm all for that. But as far as restricting people to access to where they want to go, that aligns with your decision. If you decide I'm not going to get vaccinated, you've just decided you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to go to restaurants, you don't want to attend concerts, and what you mean by who's standing on it? I mean, like I don't know what you meant by that. Like what I don't help me out with that. Give me some context.
Me.
Now, what do you mean by standing on it? Yeah. What do you?
Yeah. So a lot of times, like Poop said, people felt forced because they want to live life the way they used to. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking, well, if it was just because you want to go to Burger King, then why you didn't just get it in the first place? Because a lot of people say, I want to travel. That's why I got it.
Yeah.
Right. So, but then why are they waiting so long if a lot of reasons mirror that? You see what I'm saying?
Well, because people don't really have the information. I mean, like to Alex's point, nobody knows how to read a scientific journal. So you can say, I'm going to do my research, but if you don't know how to navigate through medical records or medical journals, you're not doing no real research. I mean, these people are educated. They spend years in the profession for a reason, to deliver news and to deliver information to the public in these pandemic type of environments. We can't pretend like we can do our own research. No, we're just reading somebody else's research. So when it comes down to it, if we're not if we're relying on our own personal feelings about not getting the vaccine, and then they say it's mandated if you want to go to Burger King, then you're not really standing on your own personal beliefs anyway. If you were that strong to say I'm standing on my personal beliefs, then you wouldn't have a problem staying in the house.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
again,
yeah.
and it just goes to show the scientific method, right? How many of y'all remember the scientific method? All 7 steps or
Hypothesis.
whatever.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
So the fact that only a few of us, and that, I mean, again, we learned it in high school, maybe even elementary and middle school, right?
Middle school, high
And
school.
unless you did science again in your college, or that was one of your master courses, you don't really know that. But you would, if you knew the foundation of science, you would know that it's perfectly acceptable for things to change.
It's
The answer
test and
today
period.
may not be the answer tomorrow, may not be the answer a month from now. But when we start to go into things with, oh, well, you said this on this day, okay, we still are testing.
Right.
But
So the
does
thing
that
is, I
negate you
think
from doing it?
the uncomfortability of most, so most vaccines, it's usually like a 5 year, 7 year. So I think, and we know that COVID didn't just happen. Like, this virus has been out and it's been tested well before, 2019, right? And I think that's the uncomfortability. Like, this, it's not just a COVID thing. I don't give my kids the flu shot. I'm not anti-vax. I let them get, my kids aren't going to get polio, right? I'll let them get that. But for example, Gardasil was something that was new when my daughter was young, right? She's 20 now, but it was a new vaccine, maybe less than a year old. We're pushing this on kids. Do you want your daughter to get the Gardasil vaccine? Well, do I want my daughter to be the experiment? No, but in 5 or 10 years, I'll definitely reconsider it, right? So if I had a kid that was a little bit after it's been out for a certain period of time, and now the research has been done, now I trust it. So I think a lot of people have that same kind of, well, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, right? Like, I work in finance. I know nothing about science, but I do know, for the people that are scientists, they need to take a few years to figure it out, right? They're going to do some things. It's not going to work. They're going to have to figure it out to get it right. I don't want to be part of the first stage.
I think the
I'm
funniest
cool with
thing.
being stage 10.
Just not stage 1 through 5.
Yeah, stage
right?
1, I'm not cool with. I'm cool with stage 10.
And
That
Alex,
means you've done the research, you worked out the kinks, things are smooth sailing. Sign me up.
so Alex, and you can go. So Poop, yeah, I get it. But then you heard Chris Brown was coming to town, and then you got doped up.
Listen.
But whatever. Go ahead, Alex. What are you saying?
I was gonna say to her point, and I remember with the Gardasil, and that's something we do now in healthcare. It's regular. I think the conversations that I try to have when I'm speaking to people is, why not give yourself that opportunity, give yourself that insurance to get to be protected. That's for that. And I think the thing that makes me laugh the most, and maybe just the realm of like work that I'm in, I'm just like, people will really go ahead and, like, I hate to be explicit, but people are eating foreign people's ass that you don't even know, having sex with this person unprotected, eating from this place, eating from that place, but y'all scared to get the COVID vaccine. Mind you, we've been taking vaccines since we were little. We can't go to schools. We cannot send your kids to camp, to daycares, whatever the case is with it. You cannot travel to certain countries unless you have vaccines. So it's wild to me. I think with people, I don't necessarily think it's forced. I think to Sean's point, I agree with him in saying that, okay, well, you made the choice not to get it. That's fine. But we're also going to follow our rules from our businesses, and you can't come up in here if you are not vaccinated, because that's done to protect their employees. That's done to protect their people and their money, and so forth and so forth. So it just always makes me laugh when I see people like, y'all don't want to get the vaccine, but y'all out here coming into my space at work with this STI and that STI and that STI, but you don't want to get the vaccine. Like, it just don't make no sense.
Let's not talk about the people catching trick. Like, that still exists.
I honestly don't even think any of that matters. To be honest with you, like, we all have choices to make. Like, some women choose to be natural, but they eating shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, you don't want to put a relaxer in your hair, but you're putting mess in your body. So I think what it really boils down to is that we all want to have our own choice to do what we want to do. If we don't want to take the vaccine, then that's fine. You don't have to take the vaccine. But I absolutely believe that, if you're choosing not to take the vaccine, then you're also choosing not to go to the hospital or be admitted into the hospital first. Like there's going to be other people that take precedent. My partner, she's in respiratory care and she's exhausted every day. She caught a COVID last week, and all she keeps talking about is all of the COVID unvaccinated people that are coming in. Granted, both her and I were anti-vaccine. We didn't want to take the vaccine ourselves, but to live life, we had to. But I respect people's decisions not to. But the reality is, if you choose not to, then you're not going to be able to be an active part of society in one way, shape, or form. You're going to be ostracized. You're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to do things with your kids or with your family. And I think it's a risk, that unvaccinated people are taking. But I think what the lens that we're talking about is more so like Black people. We have a distrust for the government, period. So we're not going to trust anything the government says. We're not going to trust anything the government does. And the vaccine for us hasn't been around long enough for us to trust that it's efficient and that it's effective and that it's going to work in our best interest. And
but we trust government stipends.
Oh yeah, because that's money, and green is green.
And I think I want to get Brian and Q's thoughts on this real quick. But I think everybody made a valid point that we put Gucci on our back and McDonald's in our stomach quite often, And so this is kind of, similar to that. Q, what you think?
We're in Tarjay's finest.
Okay.
So should people be denied health care if they are unvaccinated? Deathbed and all that, right, P?
Put him in a fucking bedroom.
Go ahead.
No, I don't think that they should be denied because they refuse to take the vaccine. If they're wanting healthcare at that point and they're going to pay for it just like any other paying citizen, then fuck it, get the medical care that you need to get back on your feet.
Should they have to pay out of pocket?
Or pay out of pocket. I don't see where the two really kind of go together. It's almost like other people who say if you don't vote, you don't have a right to have an opinion. Like, who came up with that?
You don't.
Yeah, well, the problem
That's
is,
what I'm saying. Who came up with that?
The problem is the excess of COVID patients in the hospitals are taking the beds. They're taking all of the beds. So there's no.
Can I give a real life example? Right. So in the ED last week, in the emergency department last week, my emergency department only has 33 beds between 4 units, not including the behavioral health unit and like fast track, which is like patient first, right? We had 450. We saw 450 patients register to be seen. Of the 450, 75% all had COVID. All of them got beds. We were maxed out of our ICU. And I want to say like it was a very small percentage of maybe literally 4 or 5 patients being one family was vaccinated. Everyone else was unvaccinated.
So I have a question. So out of those people that got beds, were they severely ill to where they needed to be hospitalized, or were they being just seen and treated for their positive COVID?
So some were seen and treated, but of our 33, we had to convert 2 of our units into an ICU. Okay. And then find other, my hospital operates in like different codes. So code orange, we're pushing the limit at what we have. Code red is like divert. We ended up having to divert to other hospitals in the area, but every hospital in the area is doing the same thing.
Right. So I guess my question, where I'm going with it, is like, if we know that hospitals are also money grabs, just like everything else, right? So if I come in and I'm positive with COVID, you're going to get a stipend, or you're going to get more money to treat a COVID patient. At least I don't know about in 2022, but in 2019 and 2022, you were paying out more for COVID positive patients. So if I come in and I'm positive, if I'm COVID positive, for example, all of the walk-in clinics were completely filled. You couldn't get COVID test anywhere in Connecticut. So if you had symptoms, you couldn't go anywhere to get yourself tested. So if you really, really needed to, even if you did all the things you needed to, you've been, for example, I'm using my daughter as an example, have all of her vaccines, including booster, she had to go to the emergency department to get COVID testing. My question to you is, are you keeping those patients? Are hospitals abusing the system and keeping these patients for billing purposes, right? So is there an inflation of numbers, or are people, and I don't know because I don't work in healthcare, so this is a true question. Are all of these people that you're saying are taking beds, do they actually need beds? Are all of them, or can these people be diagnosed and sent home?
And
I think
so
there's a
to your
combination of
point,
going.
I can only speak for my hospital, right? I can assure that we're not inflating anything. The people that can be sent home can be sent home. We've built tents outside of our emergency department. We have COVID tents to deal with the people that we're seeing. Again, if you're testing positive, but your stats are good, meaning your body's moving oxygen and maintaining oxygen, you're not having any like dire needs. So QD comes in, I want to say 1 through 4. 1 is the most severe, right? 1 is the one, any trauma, you're gonna get emergency care. 4 is like, okay, here's a Band-Aid, sit outside. They come in all ranges. The ones that are being hospitalized are the ones that are going on the ventilators. The ones that, you can't lay down because you cannot breathe. You can't make that up.
So you're
And we also
so just to concisely make the point, you're saying that they're getting people out, right? Like, so if they're not 1 or 2, by and large, they're giving them prescription, making sure that everything's copacetic, and turning them over.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to get some final
So
thoughts
I think
Mhm.
I think what it sounded like you guys were trying to imply was that those who have chosen to not get vaccinated shouldn't take priority. But the question that Hamp asked, no, I don't think anybody should be denied health care.
I disagree. I think when they come down with some sort of government mandate, it won't be dissimilar to anything else that they mandate. You got to be 21 to drink. That's federal law. You can't go past a certain amount of weeks to get an abortion. That's law. These are medical standards that they've put into our society that we all understand that you violate, you short. So if they come down and say, if you're not vaccinated, and sorry for you, good luck, treat the symptoms at home. I think it won't be any different than any other regulation that they put out.
I also think it comes to the point where everything else we've talked about, abortions, HIV, again, affects the individual. You have to have intercourse or be sharing a needle, right, to infect somebody. COVID is public health because you get it, I get it, we get it, everyone gets it. And there's nothing you can do outside of take preventative measures to decrease that risk. And so if you choose not to, you do not then have the right to say, oh my God, look at that. I have symptoms. Let me come here. No, you were bad. Stay home.
Do you think that it is, Brian, let me ask you on P's point, do you think it is socially irresponsible if people aren't getting vaccinated, but then they're, having COVID longer, right? Being viral longer, and therefore they're giving it to other people?
Do I think they're being socially irresponsible? Well, my whole take with the COVID vaccine is we have to examine why a person doesn't get, why a person would choose to not get the vaccine. From speaking with several people, all of them actually say they don't get it because one person said something about something theory. I really can't remember. But a lot of them don't get it because they don't want something in their body. Again, I mean, it all comes back to personal choice. I guess that would be socially irresponsible. I would like to say at first, when you asked that question, I was like, yes, we should make sure people have health care. After listening to Alex and Pierre, I believe that's his name, to their point, they've changed my perspective on it, as well as Sean as well. They've changed my perspective on it. It's funny that you mentioned this because earlier today I was thinking about the vaccine. I was thinking about COVID, and I was like, when will this end? And from listening to them, they opened up my perspective that reality is this has to end some way, some shape, some form. And Tamara, if I pronounce her name correctly, if not, I'm sorry, but she was giving several. Okay, Slim, to give to piggyback on some of the examples she was saying, but again, all that is sexual intercourse. All that is a choice you choose to make, as opposed to COVID, it's airborne. So what we have to realize is, eventually it boils down to, if you don't want to get the vaccine, you're affecting everyone, because this is airborne. You have to breathe. So, eventually it would be in a person's best interest, I would think, to get it. I'm also always shocked and amazed at people who say they won't get the vaccine because they don't know what's in it. Well, you're eating out every day, or you're cooking every day, but
they eat McRib, yeah.
Right. But you don't know what's in the food that you're buying at the grocery store. You don't know what's in McDonald's, Burger King, whatever there, but you still eat it because the shit tastes good. But you don't get the vaccine because you don't know what's in it. Okay, so that's bullshit. And I'm not saying that because Pierre said it or Alex said it, but that's always been my take on it. I like soda. I don't know what all is in soda, but I know the shit is good. I like alcohol. I don't know what all is in Remy, but I know the shit is good for my stomach. Makes me feel warm inside.
Yeah, what you a pastor? Be you a pastor, a reverend, or something?
I'm changing my title, Reverend B.
Hey, man. I appreciate it. It's an interesting topic, man. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, but interesting that a lot of people kind of say, if you choose not to get it, then that's, whatever happens is on you, mortality and all that. So interesting.